I think when I look at the Baltimore Ravens, I was watching the game. And I actually like tweeted this out, and I watch. Everybody knows this. Like before anything, even before being a 49er fan, like I am a football fan. I just love
Mm-hmm.
football, so I'm watching every game that's on. And I haven't caught a whole bunch of Baltimore Ravens games, but a few weeks ago, I was watching the game. Must have been on prime time, and it just hit me like a Mack truck. And I said, damn, this Baltimore Ravens defense is fast and physical. And it kind of reminds me of, what made up the Ravens in the early 2000s in the Ray Allen
Mm-hmm.
years. I mean, Ray Lewis years. And, you and I both know, that 2012 season, the Ravens beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl, but just kind of what that defense was and what it looked like when you see the Baltimore Ravens. Do you think that the Ravens have gotten back to that? I feel like a lot of what they've done over the years really, it's like we come and go as Lamar Jackson goes, and if he's hurt, then we're not going to be as good. But this year it feels like, although Lamar, in my opinion, and we'll get to the MVP thing, I think he's carrying the team. That defense has a big hand in what's going on. So, or were these the expectations for y'all as far as on the defensive side of the ball with how well they're playing, and really the ascension of Kyle Hamilton, who was a first round pick, and how strong he's coming on?
Well, with the addition of Roquan, the defense kind of started to change about, at the trade deadline last year. So they got a lot better. Mike McDonald last year was a rookie, so he got better every game with his calls. We had a debacle versus Miami early in the season last year, and from that game forward, you could tell Mike McDonald got more comfortable and more and even better at his job. Roquan came about the trade deadline, then we start getting, start putting it together defensively. So coming into the season, I felt like our defense would carry our offense until the offense caught up. Now, what I didn't expect was for Kyle Hamilton to be as good as he is. I think I think he's I'm gonna say the best player on our defense, but he's the key to our defense because you put him in there, he can do so many different things at so many different levels that you can kind of keep the same personnel out there and defend whatever they do. Now, obviously, on every defense, you're gonna have spots where you're vulnerable, but you can run that nickel type defense out there. And if you got to slide Hamilton in the box, he can play a little weak side linebacker. He could cover a little slot guy. He could be a deep safety. And when he's not in there, it looks different. And we noticed that when he got hurt 2 weeks ago, it looked a little different when he wasn't in there. But also, Roquan is being the leader that he is. And he's not Ray Lewis, but he's trying to get in that mold where he's fiery. He makes sure guys know what they have to do, and he elevates the guys around him. Because there was a stretch, probably about 4 or 5 games, where him and Pat Queen didn't have a lot of tackles, but everybody else around them played well. The D-line played well, the secondary played well, and they just were getting people in position to make plays. They were making sure the lineman was right, make sure your assignment was right, and then when the D-line missed stuff, they cleaned it up. So the defense has been a huge factor in what we've done so far because the offense has been shaky. There's no other way to say it. The offense has been up and down, up and down, up and down. The defense has been very solid with the exception of 2 weeks ago versus the Rams. And then the offense just kind of picked up, the defense was like that day. But the defense has been solid for 13, 14 games.
Yeah, defense playing at a high level. And I like that you talked about Kyle Hamilton and how well he's playing this year. I remember when he was drafted, I did a lot of draft coverage that year for the, Locked On Network. And one thing that was floating around, he didn't run very well, right? He actually ran, I want to say 4.59 at the
somewhere slow, some on the back end.
Day and ran like 4.7 or something like that. So people were like, what the hell? Like, you got 6'4", longer, defensive back. I think he's around 220 pounds. When you watch the Florida State film, you see a guy who is super rangy and a playmaker, but then it's like, will that lack of speed end up biting them in the ass? And I think when you kind of fast forward to around the draft time, there were some people I did some shows with, some big shows on the network, and they're like, yeah, I think Kyle Hamilton, a little overrated. I think he should be a linebacker more than a guy in coverage. But then you watch him this year, and I think his length has really helped him. He looks more than athletic enough to be able to cover guys. You talked about covering little slot guys, him being able to do that. That's super impressive for a guy that is, 6'4". Do you think it's kind of being undersold, like kind of how good of a year he's having right now? You hear a lot of linebackers, Patrick Queen, Roquan Smith, how well they're doing. You don't hear a lot about Kyle Hamilton. So is this kind of like a potential like long-term Pro Bowl? Not I don't want to say the next great Baltimore Raven. You guys have some really good players there, but do you think he's kind of on that level with how he's playing, like of that kind of that next big puzzle piece for your defense for the long haul?
Because of his versatility, I do think he's one of those next staples for Baltimore because he can do so much. And what gives him problems is those small, twitchy slot receivers, like
Yeah.
what's the name I'm thinking of? Like if Tyreek was in the slot, or some of those other smaller guys that had that real quick in and out. Those guys give him problems. But the bigger slot receivers like the Boyd for Cincinnati, he can cover those guys. I don't really see much of a weakness in his game because the way Mike's using them, he'll line up man up on a slot guy, and then he'll be blitzing. And before this year, he was one of our, like I thought him and PQ would lead our team in sacks. I didn't expect to get the pressure that we're getting from the guys up front because last year him and PQ was our best blitzers, and so I expected him to be one of the team leaders in sacks. But as far as his versatility, he can do so much that I think he's going to be a Raven for life. And if he's not, some team's going to get a great player by the time he reaches his full form because he's still not in his full form. He's just a second-year player.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I think everybody kind of has a tough time against Tyreek Hill in the slot. Virtually unguardable from there, virtually unguardable from anywhere.
Yeah.
But it also should make you feel better that the 49ers don't have a jitterbug slot type guy. You know, they have Juwan Jennings. He's more of a big slot. You do have Ray McLeod, who really like, but he's kind of been banged up, hurt. He's not doing return duty right now. He's not out there. So sometimes they'll move some receivers around. You will see Brandon Aiyuk there. Brandon Aiyuk is a terrific route runner. He's a legit job of really creating space. He's not the twitchiest of guys, but he's definitely more than twitchy enough. So, you know, I think that would be a good matchup to see how does, you know, Kyle Hamilton do against Brandon Aiyuk when he's lined up in the slot. The good thing is the 49ers, at least in my humble opinion, they don't do much to really free Aiyuk up. Like Aiyuk wins because he's just good. But a lot of these other guys, we talked about Tyreek Hill, you'll see him be on one side, motion into the slot. You know, then that makes a defensive back have to kind of play off. You're not able to press a guy that motions into a spot and isn't stationary. Brandon Aiyuk, more times than not, is stationary and then runs his route from there. I think that actually helps a guy like Kyle Hamilton or anybody that's defending him. But even then, a lot of times, a lot of defensive backs, they've had a really tough time guarding Brandon Aiyuk.
What I like about Aiyuk is he the fastest, but he gets in and out of his breaks so quick. So once he gets separation, he keeps it. Whether it be on corner, post, in, slants, or whatever. Once he gets the separation, he keeps it because he can stop and go, with the best of them.